James online?
No.
Okay.
There's Mauli here. I want to use my
I
phone.
can change my name to James if you want.
Mauli. Use Mauli. Nice
Okay, so you
one.
are going to look at Mauli's cash budget. Mauli is a young man. He's working. He's not married yet. Let's give Mauli a salary. How much salary should we give him?
Fred, give me salary.
Let's give him 1,000.
1,500.
Yeah, Fred, thank you. Hey, Ram.
2,000.
How much?
2,000.
Okay, fine. So Mauli earns 2,000 cedis. Okay. Now Mauli is Christian, so immediately he gets that 2,000. Tithe and offering is taken. So tithe is 10%, but let's say we are adding 2% also for offering, right? So if he's paid 2,000, and this is January, and we are looking at the first week, he's paid 2,000. He takes tithes and offering out of it. And now let's look at what are some of the expenses that Mauli incurs. So let's look at the options here. If there is anything that we spend on that I have not put in the group, you can mention it so that I can also include it. Okay, so Mauli spends on food, rent, electricity, transportation, data, clothes and hygiene. Let's say his brothers and whatever. Then maybe this food we can take out. And maybe once in a while he sends something to some extended people. Now, Mauli, after taking his tithe and offering out, he has 1,760. Now, let's say Mauli spends 400 cedis on food. How much should he pay for rent?
He doesn't pay rent. He lives with their parents.
Okay, all right. So zero. Electricity. That one to zero. He lives with their parents. He doesn't pay. Then transportation to go to work, to come to church and stuff. Let's say he pays. How much should we pay for that?
300.
All right.
400.
Okay, so let's take 300. Then how much he likes Facebook? So how much data does he buy? Let's say 100. And then maybe the roll-ons and the spray and stuff. Another, let's say he does 150.
100 or 150.
Okay. Now, if you observe, the money he earned has not changed. But as he adds on the expenses, the money that is available for him at the end of the period is reducing. Now, let's say instead of just spending 100 cedis, he now goes to spend 600 cedis on data. Immediately he does that, the money that is available after his expenses drops to 310. So now he has 310 out of an income of 2,000. If these are all the expenditure he has, then what it means is that at the end of the period, he has 310 cedis that he can use to do a few other things. Now, in fact, we put all of the amounts in week 1. Now, if he spent all of these things on week 1, let's say if you come to week 4 and he spends another 200 there, straight away his balance dropped to 110. So he earned 2,000, but at the end of week 4, he has 110. There is an important point I want us to note here. Now, he went and did the work. God gave him the strength and the grace to do the work. So he pays his tithes and offering. He eats. He takes car to and fro, work, church, and all of that. Now, what Mauli needs to ask himself is, the additional expenditure that I am spending on data, that I am spending on clothes, is there something I can do about it? Now, if you earn 2,000, you are spending 600 on data, then you must be a really wild browser. Okay? So if Mauli says that, I think that I'm consuming too much data, he can decide to cut down on the data, let's say to 200. When he does that, his balance at the end of the period, at the end of week 4, automatically increases to 510. Okay. Now, if Mauli wants additional resources, let's say he thinks that the 510 is too low for him, what are the options that Mauli has? One, Mauli can decide to cut further, cut down on the data to 100. However, there's a limit to which you can cut in certain circumstances. So what happens? Mauli on Saturday say, you know what, let me go and do some kakaka so that I can get something small to add. So let's say he organizes some GSS pupils in the area and say, you know what, you have finished school, you don't have anything to do, come, let me teach you graphic design. Speak to the parents, they agree, 4 people come, each of them is giving him 100 CDs. So let's say he starts that on the 3rd week. So that gives him 400. Now, immediately he gets the 400, you realize that now the money that becomes available to him shoots up. And I want us to put ourselves in Mauli's shoes. As a matter of principle, what I advocate is, as much as possible, do not limit yourself to only one source of income. Now, he was doing only one job, he was getting 2,000. However, he added on something else that he could do and got paid a bit extra for it. So remember, if your resources are not enough, you have 2 options. Either you cut down on the expenditure, or you do something else that will bring you some extra income. Okay? But always let us pay attention to the expenditure side. If there are things that we are doing that are wasteful, that we think that we can reprioritize, it is important that we look at it. So week 4 has ended, and then now we are going to February. So this becomes the opening balance. Okay, the opening balance is what is carried forward to the next period. Now, let me introduce something for us to consider. In this instance, Mauli is not married. But what if Mauli intends to get married? His expenditure profile is likely to change. Now he will begin to pay rent. So what it means is that before even he makes that decision, he must have started earlier, because 1 month income alone cannot allow you to go and pay rent, because especially when people are taking 6 months, 1 year, or 2 years advance. So there are some of the items that you repeat this cycle again and again. Now, at the end of the month, he had 1,010. Let's say another month comes. Now, okay, he has a 1,010. This is the balance that is available for him to best. Okay. Now let's say no, you know what? He decides to change his lifestyle. Now he eats fried rice, goes to Movenpick, go and buy drinks and swim and all of that. So the 400 cedis he's spending on food goes up to 2,800. Immediately he does that, you see he's in red. And this is why we say you are in the red. What it means is that he is living above his means. So anytime that you inflate your expenditure but your income remains the same, you are running the risk of getting into the red. Now, let's even say that he doesn't go to Movenpick. But then, even though he has a phone, a new phone has been released, so he wants to, get it. And that phone is 1,500. Do you think he can afford it? Based on the numbers that we are seeing.
Not at all. Please, let's change the name. It's not Mauli again. It's Fred.
So what it means is that
I am.
So what it means is that immediately your income does not change, but you want to spend and please people and buy things that you do not need. You are running the risk of getting into the red. Okay. There is a point I want to introduce to you called lifestyle inflation. What do we mean by lifestyle inflation? Molly was earning his 2,000 nicely, and then all of a sudden his boss said, Molly, come, you're a very hardworking guy. I want to pay you 4,000 from next month. Oh, sorry. So Molly is paid 4,000. Immediately Molly is paid 4,000. Of course, tithe and offering, now he is faithful at it. He decides to go places. So Movenpick 2,000. Then he goes back to the data habit. 1,000. And then now he decides to go and buy things to show off that yes, now my income has changed. So now instead of the normal clothes that buy material, give to tailor to sew, he has changed the style. And that is taking another aspect of his income. Now, Mauli actually, even though his salary has increased, he has become worse off than the original position. What lifestyle inflation does is that we get an increase in income or increase in resource or increase in inflows, but then we change our taste to meet the new status. And there are times where people do it and they do it overboard. So you realize that when his salary was small, he could fit within the time frame. But then now that they have increased it, his taste has changed. And the new taste, the things are expensive. So now he begins to spend on things that, of course, clothes are clothes. Clothes are clothes, but then he now wants to look more expensive and extravagant, and therefore it affects the way he used to do the things, and now his style has changed. So lifestyle inflation, one, you see, and what is interesting about this is that there are instances where we go to church and we pray that, God, please expand my income, empower me to get more. And when the more comes, we inflate our lifestyle too much. So for somebody who is engaging in lifestyle inflation, you realize that persistently their income is not enough. And when that happens, when you come to look at the balance he has available to invest, he's already in the red. So what it means is that he cannot invest. Now let's look at a scenario. Let's say Mauli gets married and he has kids. And at that time, his salary has become 5,000. Tithe is paid, offering is paid, all right. Now he must feed the house. Okay, so how much does he leave? Let's say he leaves 1,500 in the house. Then the kids' fees must also be taken care of. So let's say that one is another 1,300. Now, because he wanted to marry, he went to rent his own space. The monthly rent, let's say he's allowed to pay monthly, the monthly rent is 800. Then now he must take transportation and go to work. We have rent already. And then he must also buy clothes. Now, when he takes care of these things, his balance drops, and then he has a positive balance of 200, which he can invest. Now, if you realize, if you compare the initial scenario that we looked at versus what we are looking at now, data has declined, it's completely zero. Now, if he wants to do it, what are the options he has? Does he cut down on the clothes to optimize the expenditure? The kids must go to school. The rent must be taken care of. And I want you to understand the practicality of this. In fact, there is a couple I know who used to live in a 2-bedroom house. But then, and this was like in an upscale area of town, quite expensive. Eventually, they were looking at the numbers, you know what, it doesn't make sense anymore. So, and these may account for even reasons why people move. So then you move from a high end, if you're living at East Legon, at the end of the day, you still sleep. If you can move to, let's say, Chado, move to Teshi, move to La, so long as it is not injurious to your health, in fact, it can allow you to rebalance your finances. And whilst we are young people, it is important that I also mention this. Thankfully, in my case, for example, the past 2 jobs that I have had, the works that I do, they give me accommodation. There are some jobs that may not pay you too much, but give you a place to live. In those circumstances, you need to do the calculations properly. Because if, let's say, a company that does not give me a place to stay, they give me 3,000, and then rent in the area is 2,000 cedis a month, and then another company says, I'll give you 2,500, but I'll give you a place to stay. You realize that even though the cash that is coming in from the second entity may be slightly lower, the benefits that come with making that choice, choosing the second one, outweigh the first. Because the first will pay you 3, and then you use 2,000 to go and pay rent, leaving you only with 1,000 and reducing the options. So it is important that when, let's say, there are instances where you become like you get 2 job opportunities at the same time. When they are presenting you with the terms, look at it properly and see how you can make the most beneficial decision. All right. Now, what I want you to use this to illustrate one more thing. and then we move back to the slides. The kids' fees are paid, let's say, once every 4 months, or maybe once every 4 months. When this is paid, let's say in this month, in the next month, there will be no school fees to pay. When the fees was paid, the balance that Molly had was 200. But in the month that no school fees will be paid, Molly's balance shoots up to 1,005. And this is where we must be careful of the lifestyle inflation. Even though the balance has gone up, you need to make provision for reserves. And that is where the last 2 lines here becomes important. So anytime that you meet the necessary expenses, any extra, make sure that part of it is set aside. What it means is that for the next 3 months before the 4th month that he will have to pay, it allows him to accumulate some reserve in an account somewhere, which could be, let's say, earning something small in terms of returns or in terms of interest, so that when the time comes, he's ready. If you repeat this cycle over and over and over again, it gets to a point where you can, let's say, here the first week invest 400, another time 500, and then he manages the rest. If he's able to do this consistently every month, maybe only the 4th month that he will not do it, but once the 4th month passes, the fees are paid, he does this. What it means is that at every point in time, he has reserves. Now, this is what will allow him to make the significant purchases in the future. Let's say he wants to acquire land at a point. It is these small monthly reserves that build on each other that will permit him to do it. It does not just happen like that. That, okay, the thing is, let's say 25,000, the thing is 40,000, and then all of a sudden, boom, the money comes. No. Let no one deceive you. That is not how adulthood is like. You need to make deliberate decisions. And especially once you become an adult, a lot of the time, even we find it a bit difficult trying to ask for help and others. Of course, if there's some assistance, yes. But make sure that your house is in order, so that when you require help, you realize, okay, the help is genuine help that you need. So please, we are young, let us not blow all of the extra cash that we have. One other thing that I'll say, in fact, it is better that immediately your income comes, set some aside. After you pay your tithes, immediately move some to the investment side. What this means is that immediately the income drops, you've sorted God out, you've actually also invested in your future. Before now, you begin to now share the rest. In fact, there's truth in the fact that you cannot spend money that you don't have. So if that is the case, if 5,000 comes, 600 goes to church, 1,000 goes to investment, you are left with 3,400. You manage within this. And this is what some people call paying yourself first. All right? It takes a lot of discipline to do. And especially in these days where, everything is being shown in your face. A lot of material things are being shown in your face like that. It takes a lot of discipline. And consistently doing this is what will bring the mastery. So that it gets to the point where now when you see the thing, you are not moved. So with this, I will say that let us guard against materialism. Because if you see it, and once you see it, you want it, you must have it. It will always leave you wanting more. However, with a plan detailed as this, before the resource comes in, you have already identified where the money must go. So you have the money, but then the money doesn't have you. You have designed a framework that allows you to deploy the resources in the most efficient manner. And that is where the mastery comes from. So I'll share the template with Prosper, and anyone who wants to try it, you can change the names here, put whatever you want based on your circumstances now, and then try it consistently and see what the results would be. No money will drop from the sky. It is, and if you believe in honest labor, it means that is you work and you earn it. One thing that you don't know, when you work and you pay, let's say you earn income and you have 3,400. If you decide to live at an upscale area where your rent is 3,400 and your balance is zero, what does it mean? Okay, here you are even invested. If your rent is 4,400 out of this income, what it means at the end of the period is that you are working for your landlord and you are not working for yourself. Why? Because all of your income that comes, you decide to go and give it to your landlord. In fact, you are the landlord's slave in this case. Because you work, you don't pay yourself, and everything goes. So these are important considerations. If you give some to the landlord and you give some to the food seller and it is finished, what it means is that you worked for the landlord and also worked for the food seller. You didn't work for yourself in any way. So it is critical that we pay attention to some of these things. Categorize your expenditure. Make sure that it fits within your income. If you want to spend more, one, expand your income, but make sure that the rate at which your expenditure goes up does not chase your income. Else, at every point in time, you are tight. So there are people who are paid 15,000, but then they are tight. They've inflated their lifestyle. They do things that ordinarily they wouldn't have done. But then the income has put them in a certain bracket, and then they want to live that kind of lifestyle. What I recommend is that it is better for you to grow gradually and consistently than for you to be erratic in your expenditure. There's a graph I will show you where we look at the erratic behavior, and then you have somebody who is, even though he's going at a very small pace, he's going consistently. That way, when you grow, the growth is a real growth. But you don't see, let's say the person being all of a sudden flashy and then he drops. Then you'll be there hustling, then when Nokofio comes, flashy, and then he drops again. That is not a real life. It is not sustainable. But it's better that you solidify your base. So when you have grown, you have really grown beyond the initial level. There's no way of coming back. That consistency is better than to be erratic. Now, what if your income drops? What do you do? What if there are no reserves and your income drops? However, the person who has been keeping something in the investment on a constant basis allows him to build reserves and to be ready even when unforeseen circumstances rear their ugly heads up. Okay, so I want us to go back now to the slide so that we can quickly round off. So this is the point that I was making about the erratic person. So the income comes, it drops, it rises, drops, rises, drops, and that is how they are, living their life. In many instances, when it gets to December, when it gets to January and people are screaming and shouting, the place is dry, it is just a symptom of a lack of preparation. Of course, you celebrate that the year has ended, but it does not mean you spend money that you don't have. All right? If you look at this person, he's growing gradually, but the pace is consistent. But when you get money, everybody knows you have money. And when you don't have, you become wretched. When you have flashy, then you drop. That is not a sustainable way of life. Okay, so these are the scenarios that we have looked at in the Excel. There are some people, because their neighbors have acquired this, they also want to acquire the same. You are in competition with your level of income, not with anybody else. All right. So there are some principal takeaways I would want us to have. One is that when it comes to your finances, you need to have a plan even before the finances arrive. 2, without a plan, you are likely to land yourself in crisis. And then for every inflow that comes, make sure you give God his due. Then we should also calibrate our expenditure to fit within our earnings. One thing that I am not shy to say is that I don't have money for this now. I'm not shy to say it. I'm not shy to tell my kids, to tell my friends, to tell my wife, to tell my parents, whoever. I'm not shy to say it. If I don't have it, I don't have. And then you invest in yourself or other businesses as a way of expanding your sources of income. And you let your earning grow faster than your expenditure. And make sure that when it comes to finances, you are not competing with anybody. Growing consistently is better than fluctuating erratically like we saw in the graph. And then regarding expenditure, please prioritize functionality and quality over fashion. Not all that glitters is gold. Yes, it may be brighting and everybody is doing it, but you want to spend on the thing and make sure that it lasts you a lifetime or lasts you, let's say, several years. So look for functionality, quality instead of fashion. Build a safety net at least as a first line of defense. The one who has built reserves is in a better position to weather the storms than the one who has nothing at all. And someone told me that he has an uncle. When you go to him for help, let's say you go, uncle, I want 300 cedis. He will ask you, how much do you have? So before you call for somebody for help, there must be something in hand. But if you are completely blank, then it makes it difficult to attract the necessary help. Guard against materialism because it will leave you wanting more and more and more, and it will leave you discontent. So these are the takeaways I would want us to take out of this. If there are any questions, I would want to take them so that we can round up. Thank you very much.